Welcome to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore. It is Saturday night here in Lakewood on the shores of Lake Erie, and I'm not joined by Jimmy Champ today because he's sick, so get better soon, brother. Hope you get some good medicine. Coming off the bench to take his spot is my beautiful spouse, Minor Stokes. Minor, how are you tonight?
I'm incredibly honored to be representing the views and opinions of Mr. Jimmy Champ.
And you also have a little helper with you tonight, don't you?
Hello, I'm Hank Hill.
Hank will be giving his thoughts throughout the night or throughout the podcast as well. Well, let's just get right into it, Minor. Our first game of the week is the Cleveland Browns facing the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a game that features some question marks at quarterback, although it looks like Joe Flacco's been confirmed as the starter. There's now passing lines for him. Still nothing for Trevor Lawrence, although I expect him to play. The Browns are 3-point home favorites, minus 165 for their money line, plus 140 for the Jags. The over-under on this game sits at 33.5. That's up a half point from earlier today. Let's start with what Jimmy thinks is going to happen, Minor.
Jimmy and I, because as you know, I will be taking all of Jimmy's picks as well. So, Jimmy, you're playing double this week. Jimmy and I are going to be taking the Browns on this one. Good feeling about the Browns, and, it would be foolish not to take the under on yet another Browns game.
Yeah, the defense plays exceptionally well at home. I actually think this is going to be an over, and I'll explain why. Because I think the weather's going to be cold, but it looks like there's not going to be rain like was previously expected. I don't really like the 3-point spread on this game because I don't know what Trevor Lawrence is going to look like, nor do I know what the hell Kevin Stefanski is going to do calling plays. I would expect the Browns to throw a lot because the Jags give up the third most passing yards per game, but I know that, which means Stefanski knows that the Jaguars know that, which means he might just run the ball a ton for all I know, because he knows what they know that we know that they don't know. But I do think Flacco's going to throw the ball 35-plus times. The over-under for his pass attempt sits at 30. I also think Flacco is either going to throw 2 touchdowns or throw 2 interceptions, and who knows? It's the Joe Flacco experience. He might throw both. So I like the over here. I think this game's going to be 21-20, 24-20. I like Jacksonville to cover. I do think we see Trevor Lawrence, and I think they play pretty well. As I mentioned earlier, the Browns' defense does play better at home. Minor, do you think the Browns' defense will play better at home here?
Absolutely.
Are you sure?
Yes.
We do have one game in the books. Pittsburgh had an absolutely terrible loss to New England, 21-18 on Thursday night. That helps the Browns' playoff chances. Although right now it's pretty squirrely in the playoff picture. The Browns, the Colts, the Texans, and the Steelers all have 7 wins. They're currently your 5 through 8 teams. The Broncos, the Bengals, and the Bills all have 6 wins. They're on the outside looking in. So let's get into the rest of the week. The first game we are going to talk about is the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Los Angeles Rams, who are just coming off a win over the Cleveland Browns. The Ravens are 7.5-point home favorites, minus 365 on their money line, plus 285 for the Rams. Over-under on this one sits at 39.5. That's just down a half point from earlier today. Minor, tell us what Jimmy thinks on this one.
Jimmy and I are definitely taking the Rams on this one. Baltimore may have an edge over the Rams, but I don't think they have that much of an edge.
I agree. I also like the Rams to cover, even though I think Baltimore wins. There is a really interesting trend where Lamar Jackson tends to just play really well against NFC teams. A big part of that is he's such a unique player. If you don't see him regularly, it's tough to be ready for the type of play it's tough to acclimate to his style of play. He's really fast, and I don't think teams generally know how to handle that. But I think with Williams back for the Rams, their offense has a lot more balance, and I think that helps them a lot. I actually think this game goes under. I think this is going to be a pretty close game. Baltimore right now is in a dogfight for the number 1 seed in the AFC. Right now, Miami has the edge at 9. Right now, Miami holds the tiebreaker over Baltimore based on a better winning percentage in conference games. but we'll see how that plays out. Kansas City and Jacksonville are both a game back. Does Hank think Baltimore is going to get the 1 seed?
Not now, not ever.
I wonder who, if only we could know who Hank Hill thought was going to win the number 1 seed. Does he think
I don't know, I don't care, whatever.
Do you think it's going to be Miami?
Oh, no.
What about Kansas City?
Absolutely.
Well, there you go. I mean, Hank Hill's still going for Kansas City, so we'll get to their big game against Buffalo here in just a second. But first, let's talk about the other AFC North team that's still trying to make the playoffs with Joe Burrow on the bench, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. They are taking on the currently 6th-seeded Indianapolis Colts. The Bengals are 2-point home favorites, minus 130 for the Bengals, plus 110 for the Colts. The over-under on this one sits at 44. These are two teams vying for the playoffs. Minor, does Hank think Cincinnati can find their way back into the playoffs with a win here?
Yes.
Ooh, what does Jimmy think is going to happen in this game?
Jimmy and I are going to take Cincinnati to cover on this one.
Okay. I am also going to take Cincinnati to cover, although I'm not a big fan of betting the line here because both of these teams are capable of winning by 20 and losing by 20. For the picks, I would take Cincinnati, but there are other bets to be made that I would make, and I'd pretty much just stay away from this game. I don't know what the hell is going to happen with Gardner Minshew and Cincinnati with their backup quarterback, or Gardner Minshew and the Colts, and what's going to happen with Cincinnati and their backup quarterback. If Indianapolis wins this game, they're probably in the playoffs. Cincinnati has to win it to keep it close. So this is one of those end of year bunch of teams are all bunched together, and this game will go a long way into separating everybody out. The next game is the first of our 2 games of the week. The Kansas City Chiefs are hosting the Buffalo Bills in a game that has a lot of ramifications. If Buffalo loses this, they're pretty much out of the playoffs. Kansas City has to win this to have a shot at the 1 seed. The Chiefs are 1-point home favorites, minus 120 on their money line, plus 100 for the Bills. The over-under on this one sits at 49, which has moved a half point in the half day. Minor, who does Jimmy like in this game?
I'm going to be joining Jimmy and taking Kansas City on the money line on this one for sure.
So Jimmy likes Kansas City to win. He's just going to forget about that 1 point. I also like Kansas City to win this game. They just got to have this to stay in the hunt for the 1 seed. I'm also betting Kansas City because I have a bet on Buffalo to win more than 10.5 games, which means for them to hit that, they have to win out. So the money I'll be putting on KC here is as a hedge. Other than that, I'm not going to be betting a ton on this game because the game I really want to bet on is our next game, the Miami Dolphins taking on the Tennessee Titans. The Dolphins are 13-point favorites in this game. Minus 800 for the Dolphins, plus 550 for the Titans. The over-under sits at 46.5. Minor, does Hank think Tennessee has any chance in this game?
What in the hell? Not now, not ever.
All right, what does Jimmy think is going to happen in this game?
Jimmy's going to be taking Miami on the spread here as well as the over. I assume that would be, we've seen all season that when Miami goes up against a middling to mediocre team, it's just it's a blowout often.
Yeah, Miami has no trouble scoring against good defenses. They usually put up at least 20 when they play teams like Tennessee that are sort of just trying to play out the string. They usually put up 30 to 40. I agree with Jimmy. I also I had my best week of the year last week, and it was mainly just putting a lot of money on Miami. Our next game of the week features the Dallas Cowboys hosting the Philadelphia Eagles in a battle for the NFC East. The Dallas Cowboys are favored in this game by 3.5, minus 190 for their money line, plus 158 for the Eagles. 51.5 is the over-under. Minor, is Hank Hill excited for this game and his Cowboys?
Absolutely.
Does he think his Cowboys are going to win?
Why not?
What does Jimmy think is going to happen in this game?
Jimmy is agreeing with Hank on this one. And as a special Christmas present, he'd like to issue Philly a special pass to fight the scheduling committee for the stretch of games that they've been playing. Jimmy and I will be taking Dallas on the spread as well as the over.
Yeah, and I'm going to be right there with you. I think attrition has hit Philly during this stretch. They've just played a murderer's row of teams. They had Buffalo, Kansas City. They just played San Francisco. Now they play Dallas. But overall, I think Philadelphia is going to be fine, but I think they lose this game. Dak generally lights up the Eagles, and he's been playing fantastic. I'm expecting 300 from him and 2 or 3 touchdowns. Also expect a big game from CeeDee Lamb. I also think Jalen Hurts plays pretty good, and I think he scores on the ground and gets at least 1 in the air, with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both eating. The team that really has taken control of the NFC after just dominating Philly last week is the San Francisco 49ers. They are 13.5-point favorites. This line has moved a half point as well over the Seattle Seahawks. Minus 800 for San Fran, plus 550 for the Seahawks. Over-under on this sits at 46.5. Miner, what does Jimmy think is going to happen here?
Jimmy's going to be taking Seattle on the spread.
Interesting. I'm going to go against Jimmy on this one because San Francisco looks like they're in full-blown fuck you mode. I expect them to just keep rolling. McCaffrey and Debo probably score. And like I said, with Miami playing the 4 players, I'm considering adding Ayuk and Kittle with McCaffrey and Debo and doing the same sort of betting pattern with them all to score. I'll think about that one. I'm definitely doing the Miami one. Does Hank think San Francisco keeps rolling?
Sure.
Does he think Seattle can keep this close?
I'll pass.
All right, well, he doesn't know what's going to happen there. I think I know how Jimmy's going to pick on this next game because we see the Houston Texans traveling to New York to take on the Jets. The Texans are 3.5-point favorites, minus 190 for their money line, plus 158 for the Jets. The over-under on this one sits at 33. I expect Jimmy is going to take Houston in this game, Miner. Is that in fact what Jimmy's going to do?
Jimmy is in fact going to take Houston on the spread, and I'm going to be joining him with that as well.
And what about Hank? This is another local team for him. Does he think Houston's going to win this game?
Yes.
Does he think they win it by more than 3.5?
Sure. Why not?
Well, I agree with Hank. This is usually the time of year that the Jets' defense is worn out This is usually the time of year where the Jets' defense is worn out and totally unmotivated because their offense is so bad. Zach Wilson's going to be starting again for the Jets, so that team's just a mess right now. Give me C.J. Stroud and the Texans to keep on marching to the playoffs. Up next, we have the Detroit Lions. They are traveling to Chicago to take on the Bears. The Lions are 3-point favorites, minus 170 on their money line, plus 143 for the Bears. Over-under sits at 43. Miner, what is Jimmy's pick in this game?
Jimmy's pick is taking Detroit on the money line as well as the over against the Bears.
I think Detroit probably wins and covers. I'm staying away from this game because all season long I've had no feel for what Chicago is going to do. I think they're going to get blown out. They play close. The 1 or 2 times I thought they were going to get blown out, they found a way to win. So I don't really know what to do here. Does Hank think Chicago has a chance in this game?
Oh, no.
Oh, man. So he really likes Detroit. Does he think Detroit still has a chance at the 1 seed?
I don't know. I don't care. Whatever.
Right now, they're currently 9-3, tied with San Francisco for the 2 seed. Philadelphia is a game ahead of both of them. Right now, San Francisco has the tiebreaker on Detroit based on conference win percentage, so Detroit will need this one to stay alive there. Up next, we have a game I'm really bummed Jimmy's not here to talk about because he has Tampa over 6.5 wins. I have Atlanta over 7.5 wins and to make the playoffs. I do also have a Tampa plus 1,000 that I cashed in a while ago because I didn't think Tampa was actually going to compete for the division. But one of us is going to be sitting pretty after this week, and the other one of us will be stressing. So who does Jimmy have in this game?
Jimmy has Tampa on the money line for this game.
All right. I am actually going to be taking Tampa Bay similarly to what I was doing in the Buffalo game. I have a lot riding on Atlanta as a future bet, so I'm taking Tampa as a hedge. I do think this should be a pretty fun game. Mike Evans is always great, and Bijan Robinson finally off the milk cartons and playing pretty well. Has Hank Hill been impressed with Bijan Robinson's play the last few weeks?
In fact, I like everything you have to say.
Does he like Mike Evans to score?
Sure.
Yeah, he's been getting peppered with targets from Baker Mayfield, which shows that Baker Mayfield's at least pretty smart to know to throw to Mike Evans. Up next, we have the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. The Vikings are 3-point road favorites here. Minus 155 for their money line, plus 130 for the Raiders. The over-under sits at 40.5. Minor, who does Jimmy like in this game?
Jimmy thinks the Vikings are looking pretty good. He's going to take Vikings on the spread.
That's probably a pretty smart bet with Justin Jefferson coming back. He's been just an all-world receiver when he's been on the field. Does Hank like watching Justin Jefferson play football?
Yes.
Does he think he has a big game coming back off the injury list?
Sure.
Well, you heard it there, man. I don't know how you would disagree with Hank. I would expect Josh Dobbs to maybe play a little better, even though he's turning back into who we thought he was. I actually like Vegas to cover this, and I like the game to go over. Vegas just looks like a completely different team with Garoppolo and McDaniels out of the picture. They look like they're playing with some fire, and they kind of have an outside shot of making the playoffs. I know they're 5-7. If they can go on a run and maybe wind up 9-8, maybe they get lucky and make the playoffs, but I think this is a week where they try to keep themselves in the hunt. Minnesota's kind of in the same boat. They're 6-6, and I mean, there's just Minnesota, Green Bay, the Rams, Seattle all have 6 wins. So there's 4 teams, only 2 of them will make it, and then you got Tampa Bay and New Orleans with 5 wins, just trying to right behind them. And we just mentioned one of those teams, the Green Bay Packers. They will be traveling to New York to take on a Giants team that is just limping to the end of the regular season. This is one of the Monday night games, and I'm sure most people will be hoping to watch Miami, Tennessee. Green Bay, 6.5-point favorites. They're minus 305 on the money line. The Giants are plus 240. The over-under on this one sits at 37, which is a half point up from where it was earlier today. Minor, the Packers are a legendary team. Is this a team Hank Hill likes to watch play football?
Absolutely.
Does he think they're going to win this game?
Yes.
Does he think they cover the 6.5?
In fact, I like everything you have to say.
What does Jimmy think is going to happen in this game?
I'm going to be joining Jimmy in taking the Packers on the spread on this one for sure.
I'm waving the white flag. Jordan Love's looked great the last month and a half, so I will also take Green Bay. And I've had no luck betting on Green Bay, so I'm just putting that out there. You may want to bet against me taking Green Bay just because that's how the season's been. We've got 2 games left to talk about, and they feature 4 teams that I'm fucking sick of. One of them is the Los Angeles Chargers hosting the Denver Broncos. Los Angeles are 2.5-point favorites. This is down a half point from earlier today. They're minus 145 on the money line. The Broncos are plus 122. The over-under sits at 44. Who does Jimmy like in this game?
Jimmy likes the Chargers in this game. Chargers money line.
Yeah, I'm with him. I think the Chargers win this game. We saw last week that Denver, when they don't get turnovers, are a completely different team. I mean, I guess I take the Chargers in the under, but I advise staying away. And any money you're thinking about betting on this game, I would rather put on Miami and San Francisco offensive players. Do you think is that something that Hank Hill can get behind?
We can put all this ugliness back in the closet. Do you have anything that tastes good?
We have one game left to get to, and it features just 2 teams that I don't want anything to do with. The New Orleans Saints are hosting the Carolina Panthers. They are 6-point home favorites and minus 267 for the Saints, plus 215 for the Panthers. Over-under on this one sits at 39, which is a half point up from where it was earlier today. Is this a game that Hank Hill wants to watch any of?
I can't eat that crap.
I agree. Who does Jimmy like in this game?
Jimmy likes Carolina on the spread in this game, and the under as well.
I think this is a stay away. I do like the under because I think the offenses are going to struggle. I actually kind of think New Orleans is going to win this game and keep their thin playoff hopes alive. Both of these teams are a mess, though. New Orleans is a mess because Derek Carr is kind of hurt, and he might not play, but I think he will, but everybody hates him anyway. And Carolina's a mess because they're the worst team in the league, and when they get the number 1 overall pick, they're going to watch it go to Chicago in May, which not very good for them. So that's it. That's the Week 14 slate for the NFL. A lot of games that'll just go a long way in deciding where we are in the playoff picture. After this week, we have 15, 16, 17. After this, we have 4 weeks left. Should be very exciting. How is Hank excited for these games coming up here in the last month of the season?
Absolutely.
Is he going to enjoy a beer and watch it with his buddies?
Why not?
Minor, thank you for filling in for Jimmy. Have you enjoyed this podcasting experience?
It's been absolutely thrilling and delightful, and it's been an honor to represent Mr. Champ.
Well, I would like to thank all of you for listening and bearing with us. And again, Jimmy, get well soon. For Minor Stokes, Hank Hill, I am Evan Belfiore, and we appreciate you listening to No Broken Legs.
Well, y'all come back now, you hear?